Шановні друзі,
Hello, dear friends. I'm very happy to see everyone today at our discussion. I would like to underline that today our format is that we are going to discuss different methodologies of measurement of sustainability or resilience and how it might impact crisis management. I would like to underline also that the principle, how we invited our guests today, is intersectional because, as you know, resilience, 3M, 3I, so to say, like interdisciplines, intersectionality, and interspecialty. And we didn't want to make a conference with speeches, even though, of course, we can hear a lot of interesting things today. However, today we would like to talk about options. Why? In order to give the opportunity to communities, businesses, Ukrainian businesses, understand what kind of methodologies they can use during war in the conditions of long-term unclearness. And I truly hope that the recommendations of experts who today agreed to join the discussion will be useful also for the defense sector. Because from one side, there is measurement of resilience in humanitarian sector, let us say so, and also there are special models used by businesses. And I guess that today, on the edge, so to say, between different visions of resilience measurement, we can find something new. From my side, from the side of NGO Resilient Ukraine, I wanted to say that it's just the beginning of a series of meetings and discussions of this topic and also other topics, because we all understand that just to have one or two meetings is not enough. The topic is really complicated. And I dare say from my experience, because we are working for quite some time on the topic of sustainability, even the terminology is not really simple. And in particular, I'd like to mention that a lot of things were made to clarify the topic by the National Institute of Strategic Research. As I would like to remind that in Ukraine, indeed, there are infrastructure of sustainability which is actively created, and also we already have the concept of ensuring the national resilience. And last year, the Cabinet of Ministers adopted the plan of actions and implementation of this concept. These are the things that become real. It's not just a metaphor. It's not just such things that we can discuss at the round tables, but indeed, people will be involved. There will be financing. Indeed, it's a new field in Ukraine. And not only, I think that it won't be developed just exclusively in our country. I wanted to mention that today, for sure, we will talk about international experience. We will look at what kind of methodologies we can use in Ukraine, both for businesses and for public sector. We have today with us Dmitro Taparek, that is General Director of NGOs Taika Ukraine, and he's from Estonia. We will be very happy to hear about the Baltic countries, how they are measuring sustainability. Today, we have with us Doctor of Sciences Serhiy Dembitsky, Volodymyr Lupatsy, co-founder of the National Platform Up for Sustainability and Cohesion. We have Olena Silecka, Head of Research Foundation Partnership for a Strong Ukraine. We have Alexander Mitsura, Director of the Corporate Risks Department of a Commercial Bank. Today, Yulia Kaplan also. Hopefully, we will be able to communicate, analyst of the Institute, expert of the National Platform of Sustainability and Cohesion. Also, we expect other guests, and we truly hope that they will be able to come and join us a bit later. I would like to mention a few organizational issues straight away. If you need, you can use the headset because we will have some speeches in English. And also you can switch to the other language, from Ukrainian to English, from English to Ukrainian correspondingly. We are working till up to 2 hours today, and in case of air raid alert, of course, we have all the opportunities to go to the other premise because, of course, safety is first of all. So, dear colleagues, I would like to give the floor straight away to Serhiy Dembitsky, Doctor of Sociological Sciences, Deputy Director of the Institute of Sociology of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. So please let us start with you. Something's going wrong with the sound. Thank you for the microphone. And we need to turn on the presentation. Thank you. Well, we start not from businesses. At the Institute of Sociology, we have an interesting project about stressful conditions, and there are many methodologies that are tested. And in general, national questionnaires were used on psychological distress, psychological resources, and some powers, ambitions. Maybe that would be more interesting for a business. Now we will focus more at war. Those are fresh results of sociological monitoring of Ukrainian society. This monitoring is being conducted since 1994, 2020. Since 2020, I am the head of it, and one of the waves was conducted and June, beginning July, and there was a special new methodology that is measuring one of the aspects of national sustainability, because we also are trying to research this topic, but it's the umbrella term, and it is hard to create one methodology, especially the brief one, because it's not that easy to use the big methodologies. However, there was another moment because from USA they mentioned how to thank the American people, because indeed we are very grateful, because monitoring was being financed by the Academy of Sciences for some time, but since the full-scale invasion it all became just impossible. Even though the Academy continues doing a lot, we don't have anything to say that we are sorry about. But every year I'm looking for money for some fundraising, and this year we got some help from USAID. What kind of methodology it is? That is the new scale, which is measuring the position of the population about the position of their country. We have 5 questions. Yeah, I would like to mention that I will be very brief about that. A lot of slides, and if we take the whole research up, then it's a lot, because we need to talk for an hour then, even trying to be brief. So quite 5 questions in the methodology. The first one is assessment of current results of combatant actions of Russia and Ukraine, that is our resistance to this invasion. So actually we see 2 options here of answers that might be considered positive. If people are saying in general it is the results are good, or in general it's okay, so then we have 42% against almost 21%, where people are thinking that the results are bad. We can see that quite a big category are people for whom it is difficult to give the answer, and that was mentioned already, this long-term lack of understanding, because in different issues, we can see that this part of answers hard to answer, the number of those answers grew. And when people were asked, how do you think, how long the war will last, 60% said it's hard to say, because before that people were saying like half a year, 2 years, etc. People had some opinion. Now they don't. And I just saw those 60%. And here with those issues, we have a lot of respondents. We have to take them into account because they might go to one side or other side. So this like prevailing 42 against 21, it's not the end indicator. The second one is opinion of the population about the scenario, how the military actions will continue in the nearest year. Either Ukraine will start liberating territories or the front line won't change. So it won't be correct to somehow combine or unite that, and Ukraine is continuing to, like, again, there's little chance that Ukraine will try to get the territories of Russia. So people are saying that at least for it not to change, because we started having some success, but at least now I'm watching the news, it seems the third is the worst option at present in the front line. The third question is assessment of opportunities of Ukrainian society and state in conducting the war. So the biggest number of respondents here said that it's difficult to give an answer. More than 40% of population, they don't understand what are our powers and our possibilities. People are just living, and it's unclear, neither for people nor for society. Also, we can combine here the option of answers in general, satisfactory, in general, good. Then we get 39% against 19. That is, situation is more or less, if we take about the content of answers. Indicator number 4, it's assessment of international situation. That is not the assessment of how we are supported, because we had a separate question for that. It is not included to methodology, but this is actually the assessment of situation in general, because there are different countries, in the EU, like the Hungary, and they are making some not really good things for us. I'm not even mentioning like China or some other countries that they might have impact over, or those who are interested in cooperation with Russia. Okay, and here kind of 17 to 17, like positive, negative, and in between like 30% of those who think that there are good and bad moments, and also a lot of those who haven't decided yet. And the last indicator is the opinion about the end of the war. Who is going to be in the winning situation? So here we can see, if we take those 5 questions, the biggest number of positive assessments, that is 36%, more than 1/3 of population. They think that Ukraine finally will be in better position than Russia. And at the same time, they are mentioning that Russia, let us say so, will win. Only 7% think so. So when we ask those 5 questions, we don't stop on that. We are forming generalized statistic procedures, so to say. I won't tell a lot about that, but respondents, they come into one of 5 gradations, from the positive to negative position of our country in war. Again, we have a big group of people who haven't decided yet, because if people mention that they cannot give the answer in most questions, then we cannot include them to one of those skills. Next, this time, like what groups are more definite, so to say, and have more understanding, I would like to stress that here we are not talking about like what I will show. We are talking about the time of uncertainty, right? And here we are looking at what is impacting the level of certainty. We see that women have less certainty. Well, it's clear, because men, from the point of view of socialization, they are more focused on such like military actions. And now when we have such a difficult war, that's about many men in particular, because they are serving sometimes, and it is clear that they will be more involved. But for women, quite a big group, especially, like, let us say so, they don't kind of understand what is happening from the point of view of military action. Second is age. It's quite interesting, because we can even see the impact of the categories to the number of positive things among youth, that is the least number, and then when like the older respondents become, the more they think that the position of the country in war are better. But this is not the explanatory factor. If we take into account other factors, I will present them a bit later. We understand that the age is not the key point here, but somewhere like at the age of 40, this uncertainty is growing to the level of like 40%. Again, the older the person is, they have some health issues, children, etc., and maybe like they are taking the person from the condition when they can be fighters at war, because for youth it's more and more relevant. Then the type of the settlement. The more people are there in the settlement, the more certainty they have in the issues. So these are target groups that actually we can pay attention to, and we can improve them being informed, and we can maybe direct them in a more positive way. Why is that important? I will mention as well. And the last is, it's not demographic characteristics, but it's social political ideology. Why I decided to show this, in order to understand that negative positions about the position of the country in war, it doesn't mean that it's a bad position of Ukraine. We see nationalists approximately 20%. They are saying that their understanding about the position are moderately negative, and it is clear that they are focused more on their own state. They're interested in victory. This is like very important thing for them, nation as such, so they are nationalists. From the other side, those people who, due to some reasons, they have negative opinion about their country, they can have that negative opinion, but people who are treating their country well, they might have it due to objectives, some moments that are there at the front line right now, international situation, etc. Next, those are the factors. What is determining that attitude? What we can hypothetically consider as the key moments? The first one is absence of worries for the future of Ukraine. When someone is speaking like something that will happen to Ukraine in the future is not my problem, others should worry about that. Is that something that you'd rather say or not? And it is clear that people who said that it's just like what they think, that they are not worried about the future of Ukraine, there's not a lot of such people. And we see that in those groups, there's quite a lot of negative opinion about the position of country in war, and we can also pay attention to the differences among those who said that it's totally unlike the things that I am thinking, but still we see that there are some opinions as such among people, like they are not really worried, but maybe a bit worried. We see the growth of those negative opinions, and of course, if the person doesn't feel him or herself doesn't feel anything in common regarding the future of the country, you can do nothing about it, even though we can just talk about that a bit. The next factor, I will come back a bit. That's about solidarity in this society, the moment of creating solidarity with the future of your country. The next one is expectation about the change of the situation. One of the indicators there was forming honest, competitive authorities, and I don't know, maybe like it was most interesting to observe, because people who are thinking that the situation with forming the honest and competitive authorities will become worse, they have negative opinion. And of course, it is clear that without a good management, like not a single good position is possible in war. The next thing is assessment. As I mentioned, assessment of international support. We asked this question in 2022, and there were really high assessments, and we had this national uplift, and that sign was really high as well. And now the situation became worse. However, still this assessment of international support remains on quite good level. That is, there's no critical things about the evaluation. So like 50% are choosing average, and high is like 30%, and so on. Together it's like almost 80. So we see that our positions should be good. And the last explanatory part, that is about the functioning of the state. It's a separate methodology. By the way, we've been using that in the project of Sustainable Ukraine back in 2021 when we were conducting the questioning in the east and south of Ukraine. And then at the end of 2021, we started making the national events. And there we saw really like a lot of negative answers. The invasion has started. It all turned upside down, and the assessments were higher, and then they became worse and worse and worse about the functioning of the state. And in summer, we came to the points of 2021. Again, significant negative opinion is the first factor that is explaining actually the position of the country in war. That is the position about the functioning of the state. And actually, in public opinion, it is quite important what makes the country successful. The next one, model. Well, it's a very simplified thing. So there are some things that are explaining how the state is functioning. Again, in this questionnaire, we could research that. This is my channel. Not a lot of subscribers, but I am considering that about the functioning of the state. You can just watch it. Statistically, we see that that position is impacting the position of the country in war, and we can make a conclusion that understanding about the position of the country in war is impacting the belief in victory. Well, of course, it's clear that we can resist our enemy even without our faith in the future, because there are some fatalists that will be fighting till death, even though they understand that it's impossible to win. For the biggest part of the population, believing in victory is one of the very important psychological factors, and it might be one of the components of our resilience and targeting the victory. And the last graph. So here the explanatory factor is the position of the country in war, and the variable is how do people believe into victory? Well, we see that the critical situation is only among the respondents who have negative opinion about the position of the country in war. So, well, more than a half, they are not sure that the victory will happen. There's a significant part among those who have moderately negative opinion about the position of the country in war. But if we look at those who are confident, because if the person is saying that they are rather confident, they have certain doubts already about the victory. They kind of believe, but there are some doubts. If we look at those who are totally confident, we can see how much this confidence depends on the position of the country in war, how this dark green color is becoming smaller. This is a kind of the presentation. There is a model, there are measurements. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Serhiy. Dear friends, I would like to mention straight away, just prepare your questions, because indeed we have a discussion today. But straight away, so that we just speed up a bit, I would like to give the floor now to Olena Silecka, Head of Research, Foundation Partnership for a Strong Ukraine, and we will continue the topic of sociological researches, and then after Olena's speech, we will discuss all of that. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to participate in the discussion. While I'm waiting for my presentation, I would like to present myself briefly. I'm the head on Researches, Partnership for a Strong Ukraine, and our team, research team, we are conducting researches both for the program activities of the foundation, and we are also conducting the researches ordered by our government, and also we have our grantors, and we are cooperating with them, and we help them to conduct researches. Therefore, the measurement of sustainability is very relevant for us nowadays, and we have a certain approach to measurements. And I would like to share our approach with you right now and how that is actually happening. So this example is the research that we are conducting at the national level, and we are measuring social sustainability. This is a questionnaire that started back in 2022. It's been conducted by the Foundation for a Strong Ukraine with our partners. First of all, that is the Center of Sustainable Peace and Development, SEED, the well-known. Also our partners, USAID, Project DG East and TSA, UNDP also is our partner, implementing partner. The project we've started since 2022, once per year. We are making the researches, and in terms of sustainability, I support the opinion of my colleagues that monitoring of those signs is incredibly important to see the new trends that we have to see regarding safety. Namely, so this is whole Ukrainian research. We are conducting that with the help of questioning over the phone. We are using the random phone numbers, and this is making us closer to results as far as it's possible in our conditions. Now I would like to show our concept of social sustainability, and I will show you some results. When we are talking about social sustainability, we are focusing on 5 main measurements. About the social cohesion, I will talk in more details. Here we mean identity, trusting various institutions, then acting for the benefit of the society. And also here we are asking about safety. And safety in this context is considered by us as economic safety. That is, how do people feel that they have stable income and they can ensure that their family has proper nutrition, and also that they can rely on social payments, like if they need those. Also, in the issues of safety, we are considering the medical services provision, the main ones and the specialized ones. And also, it's very important to say the moment when the person feels safe in the place where they are. And also, we are considering the safety, how the person is assessing that. The next factor is assessment of the infrastructure of place of residence. We are taking different infrastructures and we are researching that from the point of view of basic needs that now the person has, and also whether they have access to basic needs, and all those basic needs are related to infrastructure. We are talking about ensuring access to medical services, educational services, and social. And we are also asking about the infrastructure of communication, availability of internet and mobile connection, in order to understand how much access does the person have to all those services. The next point is sustainable and involved management. Here we are assessing how much, in people's opinion, people can ask, and the authorities will give answers to the society for their answers. Assessment of corruption is also considered, and in this domain, we are also considering not just assessment of authorities and what they are doing and how people are perceiving them, but also we are researching involved management. It means how ready people are and they are joining decision making and impact decision making in local authorities. In this domain, we also pay attention to that. Another domain is information sustainability. We do understand that it's very important in terms of prevention of disinformation. As for now, we are not considering a lot of problems in this direction, that is access to Ukrainian media and media consumption in general. Those are 5 main moments, so to say, the reasons and notions of social resilience. And Mr. Andrei mentioned that the terminology is really not easy, and many researchers, many concepts of social resilience, there are different approaches, different components of this notion. We are representing something that we are working with in our foundation. And just for example, I would like also to show how we are working with one of the components of social resilience, that is social cohesion. Social cohesion we are considering in 3 main dimensions. When we are talking about identification, we are talking primarily how the person feels belonging to Ukraine, to the country where they are living. Second moment is the name, like pluralistic Ukrainian identity. We mean by this, how do people feel that it's a unified nation, united nation, in spite of different like ethnic background, different religion, but these all are people of Ukraine. So this is a moment of identity. The next one is focusing at joint well-being. So here we are talking about how widespread the feeling of the public duty is there, how people think whether their voice matters and that they have impact to the decision of the management, and they want to make something for the future of their country. And social tolerance, meaning how ready they are to pursue people from other groups. The next domain are actions for the future well-being, that is cooperation in the community. So in this domain we are talking more about real actions, because earlier we are talking about readiness. In general, if we talk about cooperation in the community, then we are talking how respondents can and are ready to rely on and hope for the help of their neighbors. And the other measurement is how many actions were there in the last year, some joint actions with their neighbors, with people from their community to solve some joint projects. Those might be really everyday things, but the main idea is that people could unite themselves and resolve joint problem, like cleaning the territory or planting trees or whatever. The main thing is to have the experience of joint solution for the problem. And the last one is trusting state institutions. Here we are considering trust to central authorities, local authorities, as well as measurement that authorities are taking care of them. And the main sign, which was including the feelings of people that authorities are ready to stand for the interests of usual people. First of all, that authorities know about the needs of usual people and are ready to represent the interests of any citizen, and it doesn't matter what region the person is living in. And summing up, just a few results of the research. And the example of elements of social cohesion. So here all the four domains are represented, and we can see that identification, that is the feeling of belonging to the country, pluralistic Ukrainian identity, they have the biggest input, namely to the element of social cohesion. Partially, Mr. Serhiy also mentioned this in his research. Is also a high range of people who actually feel the belonging to the country, and as you can see, this sign is not changing over the years of research since 2022 to 2024. These signs are the same. Then also higher than averages are the signs of focusing to the common well-being. Social tolerance is also higher than average. Here is the scale I'd like to add. The scale from 0 to 10, and 10 is maximum possible. And focusing on the well-being is stable and high during the whole period of measurement. Also on the same level, we have actions for the common well-being. You can see that in green color and like a frame. So it's not as high as, for example, identification, not 9, but approximately 5 and a bit. That is the average. But again, it says that Ukrainians, they are ready for joint actions, mostly, in most of them. And this is the beginning for many activities. People can come together for joint idea and for the things that they are doing together. In spite of like trust to institutions, this sign became lower in comparison with 2022. It is reducing, and this is confirmed by the data of other researchers. And both for central and local authorities, the trust becomes lower. However, as for in comparison with 2022, trust reduced, but in comparison with 2023, it remained on the same level, and the trust to central authorities are reducing in 22, 23, 24. What is the use of this type of researchers? Because we are focusing on practical use of the results of any researchers. Knowing the situation, for example, and researching the domain, which here is shown as the only domain that has reduced science, we are going deeper and we start researching the factors that are impacting this trust. And knowing this information, we already can provide certain efforts in order to support that on the level of recommendations or some activities in local or centralized authorities, and also the joint factors that are impacting the trust of central or local authorities, that is the level of corruption. We were measuring that on the local level only the reports of the authorities and provision of services. That is about the improvement of those signs. It will impact positively the trust of central and local authorities. As for central authorities, then such signs as was discussed, like Ukrainian identity and a feeling of belonging and safety of people, all those things are impacting the level of trust to central authorities. As for local authorities, we can see that they are impacting positively. That is the feeling that the authorities are taking care of them, that they know the needs of each person, and also availability of mechanisms of public involvement. And in terms of this, I would like to mention that this type of knowledge, why these researchers are so valuable and they might be used in practice, because the feeling that the authorities take care of them and the local authorities, they know needs of each citizen. Well, actually, that might be implemented at places in quite simple way, and we know from our activity and communication with communities that they are actively using such tools as public hearings, or questioning citizens of their communities, and this our research is showing that this is the right way, and this will promote growth of trust to local authorities in particular. Here I would like to end, and I am ready to hear questions and discussions. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Elena. Dear friends, now let us talk about the things that we've heard. And I would like to thank you especially for paying attention to the local level, because as we all know, one of the key principles of sustainability is being subsidiary. Any crisis is solved on the lowest possible level with the condition of proper coordination on the central level. Therefore, as far as we have, I would like to remind you, we have business representatives here with us. Please join us in our discussions, especially from what you've seen today, involvement of all stakeholders on various levels and assessment, as far as I realized, the quality of the services provided. So I think that we have something to talk about here. Dear friends, if you have any questions, please raise your hand, or if you can comment, then please join us with this. Yeah, got it. Okay, if possible, I have a question to Mr. Serhi. The first one. Tell us, please, if possible, like really briefly from your point of view, if now there is such an opportunity to interpret the data that you were presenting, what are the key vulnerabilities that you saw according to your research for Ukrainian society? Well, that depends what we are focusing on. This model has two key signs. That is about the functioning of the state. And indeed, we did not focus much on the local level. It was more like on societal level. There are 7 factors. Yeah, I'll try to remember all of them. There's a significant part of people who think that in Ukraine we have kind of a threat of a dictatorship. Um, we can work with that. There is, as for, yeah, satisfied and with living in their settlement local level, how satisfied they are with their position in this society. There is a range of factors. Now I would like to recall all of that. If we are talking about all of that together, it is forming the attitude to the functioning of the state, and that this attitude is impacting the position of the country in war. I mentioned those moments, and all of that is kind of making our belief in the victory smaller, but it's just one of the factors. And we see that if we take the score, the well-known methodology, a lot of things are involved. We just take it and we work with it. And the communication thing is very important now. It's important to communicate the problems. And by the way, the president said that, and it's in line with my speech. I'm communicating with people from the office of the president. I don't know whether they started that after my speech or even before, that we have powers to gain victory. I mean, we have strong positions and it's very good, but just when it's communicated, then all the story reminds me the fairy tale about the boy and the wolves. There is the fairy tale about the wolves and about the rabbits. It doesn't matter what that we are talking about, the pink rabbits, or we are talking about wolves. If we talk for quite some time, then no one's gonna listen to any stories anymore later on. So I think that we need to show some results. Thank you very much, Vladimir Lobatin. I would like to give a certain kind of frame because we are making our analysis about the assessment. What I want to say is that lately we see that the world lives in the conditions of post-truth, so to say, and Ukraine lives in strict information war conditions. So we need to understand that sociology today primarily is functioning in the mode of how it is used in the information war. And there are two political cultures, especially if we are talking about authorities. One, it's when they are making their decisions based on ratings, and then they are kind of doing the mass questionnaires, etc. But there is a situation of information propaganda. If you do not protect your information field. And the second option of political culture for the state and leaders is political leadership. Political leadership is kind of not that much about the assessment of public opinion, but the assessment of risks. That is the first thing. And secondly, assessment of risks is made based on working with the expert knowledge. That's also a separate, quite complicated system. That is, there are questions that might be answered by experts, and there are some questions that it's not proper to ask the citizens, not to make the profanation. And I just want to show this framework. The example is very simple because now in the center and the focus of attention are negotiations, peace, etc. And indeed, that's about mass questionnaires. We see that, and from our expert questionnaires, questionings, we see that it's the most painful topic, and the mistakes and decisions in this issue, they might give positive and very negative results as well. Yeah, that is briefly. Thank you very much, Vladimir, for mentioning various methods of assessing sustainability, indeed qualitative and quantitative, and now we can see variety of indexes in the world. And also the UN, they're conducting that, big businesses are conducting certain measurements. And also big audit companies, they are trying to measure that in the whole fields, different fields. But maybe we can do that also for our communities. I just wanted for a comment to give the floor to Mr. Oleg Kovalchuk. Well, my comment is going to be about the researchers in general. I will talk as a psychotherapist, and I have three parameters for answering the question how to read that, how to perceive that, and what to do with that. How to read that? The society, in better cases, is reading the headlines and media, and it is far from what was meant by researchers, and they are reading press releases that are also interpreting some things, and there are separate people who are reading the researches. But researches in sociology, we have to dive deeper into it. And if there is lack of answers to certain issues, just consider the researches of the previous months, and you will have the so-called longitude research, and you will get the answers to questions that you have when reading headlines. Headlines are mostly dramatic. That is, you have to attentively read that. How to perceive it? You have to perceive that in calm manner, because like 80% of neurons in our brain are working for arousal, and we are reading, especially in now we are reading that in dramatic obstacles. So do not become aroused. This is just math, that is science, and do not give emotions to thoughts, some controversial thoughts that you have in the process of studying this material. Scientific approach to perception of some truth is that you have certain system, certain category apparatus from the point of view of which you are assessing that. If you're not a scientist, just ask someone or read someone who will explain you what is the drama about or the absence of the drama in simple words, and also what to do with that. Why sociology is useful in here? Because personally, I in practice prefer focus groups. It is useful because you, in a broad sense of the word, I mean our viewers and listeners, you can add it your personal conspirology. It's obvious that waking up every morning and your clear understanding of how the world is working, what is happening in the USA and in our country, what authorities are corruptional, etc. Sociology gives a set of numbers and facts based on which you can get either like positive strengthening of your phantasmagorical beliefs, or you can challenge them. If you won't give emotions to your rational understanding, then you can get free of charge psychotherapy, and that will cool your understanding about the end of the world that will happen, and you will be in the center of it, in your opinion. And sociology is providing very good psychotherapeutic material because it shows that the world is big. In addition to your bulb and to your personal neuroses and traumas, there's still a lot of other people, and some of them are experiencing the world differently among the 8 billion population of the planet. When you are setting up your own phobias and fears and preferences into the context, sociological context, it becomes easier because this drama scale reduces, and it's easier for me to work with such people as a specialist. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oleg, are there any comments? Yeah, please. Reina Maratian. Thank you, dear colleagues. The professor of Shevchenko's University. My question is to Ms. Elena. On her slide, there was such an option as information sustainability, and I have the question, what criteria did you use to determine information sustainability? Is that the level of media literacy of population or the critical thinking? That is the first question. Then, why just social informational? And again, I will ask Mr. Allah, can we speak of such an option as psychological resilience, and what kind of criteria should be there for psychological resilience? I offer to discuss that a bit separately. Thank you very much for your question. Indeed, thank you very much, because that's a very important moment about information resilience. And actually, we've just started implementing this field in the last waves, and now it's implemented as an access to Ukrainian media and media consumption when we are analyzing what the person is consuming, what is the content that they are using. We didn't ask about media literacy, but now we are considering kind of a separate research about that. But I agree that it's also the moment of social resilience. Now it is in two aspects. The second question you had was social sustainability, right? Yeah, like why not psychological? Well, as for economic sustainability, we were trying to consider in the block about economic safety, and we are considering the issues related to the incomes of population and hope for social payments. We are considering that as an element, and we call that economic security. I will be happy to discuss this with you, because now this is very relevant as of today in different approaches to measuring sustainability. That is why we came all together to discuss this. Thank you very much, and I would like to say that a bit later we will come back to the topic of psychological sustainability with Mr. Oleg. But now, dear colleagues, if you don't mind, I would like to give the floor to Dmytro Teparik, the CEO of Resilient Ukraine or Sustainable Ukraine, about the experience of the Baltic countries. Thank you very much, Andriy. I would like to say that my brief speech will be in English, and I am very happy to see many familiar friends here in the room. And Resilient Ukraine, it's not just NGO, but the network of experts, friends, and good people in my country and Baltic countries. My country, Estonia, started the program Sustainable Ukraine in 2015, and
a lot from you. So what I'm going to present here is not our experience. It's actually a transformation we have made during last years because of experience of Ukraine. So for that, actually, we are very grateful to you that you are willing to share your experience with us. And for us, resilience have been always a very practical concept. I know that there are many academic studies focused on different aspects of resilience, but for us, being a small country on the front line with the aggressive neighbor, as you are here in Ukraine, but we are a small country. For us, of course, it's a luxury just, to have theoretical concepts of resilience, so we always implement it in practice. And for that reason, of course, we learned a lot from various partners. So we had our own concept of resilience, but we, as I said, adapted and transformed it based on the experience from Ukraine. So, if in a short, we called the concept beacon. So basically, it's a structure which provides you with the light of hope. And our studies also showed, and studies in Ukraine we also conducted within the framework of Resilient Ukraine project together with Sergei and his team. So that actually hope, and it could be described in various ways. So Vira v Перемогу, that's also part of hope. That actually light of hope is very essential to maintain the high level of resilience. So we conceptualized our approach to practical resilience as a beacon, and then we described different essential elements there, starting from behavior, and I guess Oleg and other people can speak more about it, but also about evaluation, agility, commitment, so basically how citizens are commit to do something or not to do something. Also, operational frameworks, how resilience is integrated as a concept in different level of management. It's not just about state institutions, but also about private companies, businesses, and non-governmental organizations, and of course about networking. So, because if you are not connected, that you are not resilient. I'm not going through all of this today because our time is limited. I just would like to focus on the evaluation, because today we are talking about measurements, so how to measure resilience, and measurement is included into evaluation. Many common words already heard today. It's about, first of all, risk or threat assessment that we do under the evaluation to create situation awareness, that not just state institutions, but other resilient stakeholders like private companies, again, like citizens, organizations, but basically general intelligence-based situation awareness, what is happening around you. I mean, first of all, with you, around you, in your community, in your Ramada, in your region, and then, of course, in the state. And then, as I said, it's a very practical approach, so it's basically about to evaluate the effectiveness, preparedness, and responses. So how effective your measures are, and you can measure it, of course, how prepared you are, and then how to respond to different crises. And as for surveys, our government does twice per year regular survey, and you can see here again familiar domains and familiar topics that Serhiy and Olen already presented, very much in line. So we adapted it again based on Ukraine's experience. It's trust is included. It's also about identity and about relations with our international partners like European Union, NATO. It's also about information consumption and media consumption, disinformation stuff, security, economy, and everything. So in that regard, I think we are very much aligned in understanding what we should measure. That's the government's job. So that's, in your case, I understand the fund does it for the government. In our case, government's office, which is not political part of the government, okay, they are bureaucrats. So that's their task, job to do, to measure it twice per year, to understand the general situation. Another survey that's the expert community does in the Baltic States together with partners from different countries under the umbrella of RESWELL framework. We adapted methodology from Israel because Israeli researchers were pioneers in studying resilient concept a long time ago. And of course, you all know the history, but resilience should be very much localized. So we adapted their concept to study resilience, and we use complex indexes for that. And basically 5 major domains are included. First of all is hope, already mentioned, and under hope you have 6 or 7 different questions how you measure hope, but also different dangers and threats. Yeah, it's about threat perceptions, but also about distress, and again, something to comment maybe for Serhiy and Oleg about psychological resilience, how we measure the level of distress. Community resilience, it's also complex index of 10, 12 questions, and then societal resilience at the national level, also 10 or 12 questions. This is the very same methodology we use in all Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. So we started 2 years ago with Estonia and Lithuania, then Latvia joined, so this year will be the 3rd one. So we have the same data over 3 years to compare within 5 different domains. And it's not a competition between the Baltic states, obviously, but since we are in the very same geographical and security environment, so we can actually compare not just the level of level of resilience, but also different factors. And just on the graph here, you can see that, for instance, the level of hope decreased in my country, in Estonia, over a year. And that's a big concern for decision and policymakers because, again, studies show that if you don't maintain strong hope in the future, other indicators will follow too. But then to revalidate, and that will be my last slide, I just encourage you to think also outside the service. Services are very necessary, they provide the data. But to revalidate it, and some speakers already mentioned it, that focus groups are a good level to go in depth with the different findings. So how we revalidate the data from the service, another method is used, crisis simulation exercises. Of course, during the exercises, you evaluate different algorithms and different protocols. But in addition to that, actually, you can also measure what kind of gaps and resources you have. So last year, my country, Estonia, conducted large-scale crisis simulation exercises called Servex. And in addition to different simulation scenarios and crisis management, what they also measured and revalidated the data, it's about cross-sectoral cooperation, it's about preparedness, level of preparedness of different communities and of different societal groups, how communication flows worked or didn't work, and how the safety and security culture was adapted in different communities. Because if you speak to, let's say, rescuers, policemen, women, or let's say security services and military men, for them, culture of safety and security is something natural. But then if you go with the same approach and with the same language to non-security sectors, schools, medics, private companies. So for them, it's a totally different universe, but still they're also part of crisis management. And for that reason, using crisis simulation exercises as a platform for measuring resilience, it's also a very practical approach. I would encourage it to do here in Ukraine as well. So Resilient Ukraine made a series of crisis simulation exercises in 8 locations, and we would like to continue because it's not just about training, but it's also about measuring resilience and revalidating some of the data. So, так, дуже дякую. Якщо будуть питання.
Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer. Thank you very much, Dmitro. I would like to remind everyone that on the NATO summit in Vilnius that took place in 2023, a separate document resolution about resilience was created, and a lot of experts were involved on the highest level. Resilience was decided as one of the priorities of alliance development. If you have any questions to Dmitro, to your colleagues, now you have the opportunity to communicate about methodology and the practical implementation. Volodymyr, please. Yep. Well, first of all, I would like to thank Dmitro because the project, Resilient Ukraine, from one side, indeed, it's Estonian project, but from the other side, it performs very important function because it is covering the option which is really weak, that is the ability to learn from own experience, that is to study that, to make up a catalog, so to say, and implement and do the scaling. So from one side, Ukraine gives certain experience and maybe even some new international standards for resilience. But from the other side, Ukraine has to continue to study, especially in terms of institutional policy and ensuring resilience. Because, well, my question actually is, I don't want to offend anyone, but as it seems to me, Estonia, in this case, if we took Baltic countries, it's a bit kind of ahead of us. How do you assess the situation with the politics of resilience and its institutionalization in other countries, it's one question. In Baltic countries, of course. We are interested in that because we are considering this from up to Azov Sea, and weakness anywhere it is shown and has consequences. And if, so to say, the vehicle is working in Estonia, can you please share the public part of risks that you identified in the last time when you conducted risk assessment in your country? Yeah, thank you very much. As far as here we have public broadcasting, I can say that our friends in Latvia and Lithuania are trying to create powerful resilience system, and it's not a competition. We have some vulnerabilities.
Very, very similar what we have in Latvia too, that the level of social cohesion, социальная сгрунтованность, this level is much lower than in Lithuania, for instance. And as we learned from Olena's presentations, that social cohesion is one of the components of resilience. And that's we are struggling with in Estonia and Latvia, but level of social cohesion in Lithuania is much higher. Recently, again, speaking about economic security, which again another component of resilience, well, Latvia had some, I would say, problems. Currently, my country, Estonia, is experiencing economic downturn, so our economy is struggling, and we will see the measurement of resilience next year, and I think it will be basically also decreasing. What I'm trying to say that resilience as a practical approach is very conceptualized and contextualized in context of each country and each society, and it's always very, very dynamic, which means that once measured, you should remeasure it and revalidate it and do it regularly. As for the risks, one of the risks we mapped is demography. That basically, if you think about continuity of functionality of different sectors, and I think Ukraine can also share that experience because of many people left Ukraine and many people migrated from one region to another regions. But in my country, we don't experience that kind of migration. But even now, if you simulate a crisis, then basically there are not enough people, not enough experts to cover all the sectors and all the areas in order to ensure continuity of functionality, which means that someone, hopefully not, but if it's a crisis or a war, that someone will have to make a decision what we are going to do or what we are going to cut, basically. What will be the sacrifices not covered by experts and people because they're just not enough, and what areas will be prioritized.
Дуже дякую, Дмитре. Я з нетерпінням чекаю залучення до нас.
Thank you very much, Mitro. I am waiting for the businesses to join our discussion, taking into account that indeed during the simulation trainings that Mitro is mentioning, local entrepreneurs were actively involved. They also participated in solving crisis situations together with local authorities and state emergency services and the police. And this experience of communicating and solving some complicated problems, it was really, really important. And the role of business was very important when having such simulation trainings. But before that, still, I would like to give the floor to representatives of the National Platform of Sustainability and Cohesion, Volodymyr Lupatsu first, and then Yulia Kaplan. Yeah, well, actually, I asked the question. Yeah, if possible, be brief, up to 5 minutes. Well, I would like to pay your attention, first of all, to this case, which is demonstrated by Estonia comprehensive approach is very important. And before coming to some questionnaire or measurement, we have this holistic vision and we have this model of sustainability or resilience that we are approaching with. We as a platform also have made some like working option, or it is built on the work with expert assessments with communities that were deoccupied, and the analysis of the models of behavior that were shown in that peak time, so to say. This is a formula of resilience that was conceptualized by us in the period of Blitzkrieg, so to say. And I think that moving to the mode of war for exhaustion will give new material. But again, I would like to briefly mention what we managed to figure out. The Ukrainian formula of resilience is based on the political culture which was gained by Ukrainian society primarily in the latest 30 years, and it is brought to 5 dimensions. The first one is about the values, and all the revolutions they demonstrated that we have anti-colonial and anti-fundamental approaches, so to say. This motto, freedom is our religion, I think it is showing us this. Second is self-defense, self-defending in broad sense of it, not the certain form that we have. Again, this political culture of 30 years, it gave experience to Ukrainian society, not only to stand for certain values, but also to defend. That is democracy. Sustainable democracy is the democracy which can be protected by the actions of citizens and civilians. And that is what we could see. The third dimension is self-organizing, not self-government, because self-government governing it's one of the forms of it, but we've seen this is political culture that we have in our experience in certain institutions. Those are various forms of like organizing themselves, and especially decentralization reform was incredibly important because it created a separately functioning component of authorities, social order, which in the conditions of war and when the loss like on regional central level, no loss of powers, it continued functioning at the local level. Then it's public cohesion. A lot was mentioned about that already, but the key moment in Ukrainian model of social cohesion is the model which is built on involvement, not ideocratic model, which, so to say, is working on indoctrination and just forcing doing something. But this is involvement. This gives the bigger effect, etc. And the last component in resilience, social innovations. Well, so to say, in extreme conditions, both the society and also the armed forces of Ukraine and the defense forces, they were forced to do something out of nothing. And that's a whole set of innovations in using the weapons and using the deficit resources and interacting with each other, the world, etc. Thus, the value, self-defense, social cohesion, social innovations, 5 dimensions. Formula of resilience in Ukraine. Thank you very much, Volodymyr, and with the support of Yuri, I would like to now address the key component of resilience, the local level. From your point of view, how measurements on the level of communities are possible, I mean resilience, and how this infrastructure is already brought to local level in Ukraine from your point of view, taking into account the researches that you've conducted. Greetings, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for the question. I will speak about very certain and practical things. Just like Dmitro mentioned, and you, Andriy, were mentioning that what is happening on a local level, maybe I won't talk about how to measure this. Maybe that will be for the further discussions, but I just want to pay your attention to the moment how resilience is seen as of today in our communities. My conclusions I will base on those focus group researches that I have something to do with and that were connected in the framework of our platform of sustainability and cohesion and other projects, and also one project that allows me to communicate all the time with representatives. Those are women from different regions of Ukraine, different communities, and representatives of local authorities. Again, small communities. I just want to develop this focus for all of us a bit. So we are living in the community. It's either deoccupied or it's close to the front line or even in the rear, but it's small. What helps the person just comfortably or just survive in this community? Of course, it's safety. It was mentioned a lot of times already, but what kind of safety is that? Because the safety is different for the rear community and for the community which is close to the front line. If it is a small community and if it's a big community, if that's Ivano-Frankivsk, that's also the community. But they have jobs, they have schools, they have higher educational institutions. If that is the community with a population of up to 10,000, the opportunities there are totally different. So, of course, if we are looking at it this way, for the person who's living in the community, their resilience is shown by the safety of life, availability of job, possibility for their children to study, to get medical services, and everything related with that. And unfortunately, if we look at it this way, then the resilience of our communities as of today is very weak with the assessments of those people who we conducted focus groups with or who we communicated with. And the key task, as mentioned by those people, is that the community just have some population. This is the key task, because if there is no population, then we cannot talk about any sustainability or resilience. And for the population to stay there, like those who used to live there, right? Some conditions should be created for them. Even more than that, for the community to be sustainable, for example, IDPs came there, it would be good for them to stay there as well. And there should be certain conditions for them created. There are businesses. Community cannot survive if they don't have entrepreneurship. And will the relocated business survive there? In Ivano-Frankivsk, for example, or in Lviv Oblast, it's a big issue. What do local authorities do in order for the relocated businesses to find themselves, so to say? It's an issue. Some know, some don't. Something like what can be done. So if we are talking about resilience of our communities, where everything starts from actually, so we should pay attention to demographic composition, demographic problems, and it's a key thing. Next is social and economic structure. Even if those are regions in the rear, the situation is changing. If we take the oblast of Transcarpathia, and they never had big machine construction, and now it just appeared and they need specialists who will work there, then local population, which is still there, like male population, they have to be requalified, or they have to teach women. By the way, about women, it's a separate issue, because in most communities that I've been facing, because of mobilization, the number of men, of course, reduced. And it happens so that either those are small enterprises and only women are working there. They are carrying cargoes, they are drivers, etc. Everything's on them. The issue of requalifying of women to some professions, it's another measurement of our resilience. And if to sum up all of that a bit, the resilience of communities depends on the administrative status that the community has, big or small, etc., because those are different problems for a small community and big community. Where the community is located, we have very different communities, and indeed, it's like those that are near the front line when they have artillery shellings, or those that are deoccupied territories and they are already like 50 or 100 kilometers from that, and the rear communities, even though the issues of like lack of population, even in small communities of Lviv region, these problems are present, and small community cannot. Well, I know those were some public consultations in the framework of national sustainability issues. So, like for example, 3,000 IDPs came there, 250 remain, and they didn't stay in Ukraine. They just didn't stay in Ukraine because they didn't find a place for themselves. So the issue here, again, where possible, to have that economic structure that will support people. And in addition to that, one last thing, and we will give the floor to other person, social infrastructure. There's a dilemma to rebuild residential infrastructure or social one. The conclusion is those have to be parallel processes. If the person has the place to live, even own water and gas, but they don't have a hospital, they don't have the place to get administrative services, the person won't live there with their kids. For example, it's a mom and she has to leave that place. So recovery of social infrastructure has to go in parallel with recovering the residential infrastructure. And again, the labor market has to be developed in parallel with all of that. I guess those are the key things that for each community, they are determining their resilience. Thank you. Thank you very much, Yulia, and your colleagues. Again, the question, if you have some questions to Yulia, then just ask. And I'm so happy that we made such a bridge to infrastructure resilience. I wanted to say that we have Kornienko Fedor with us today, entrepreneur, founder of a network of educational institutions. And he can tell us a bit how can he not put his business on hold during the long-lasting crisis. But before that, I would like to give the floor to Alexander Mitsura, Director of the Corporate Risks Department of Raiffeisen Bank. First of all, tell us, please, how useful for you were the data that you heard today and how these methodologies might be practically used or theoretically used in business, and what are the criteria of successful crisis management in your opinion for you and maybe for other spheres, for NGOs, maybe for the defense sector or security sector? Your recommendations. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. My microphone is working, so I can already feel sustainability. The topic is very interesting, and I think that it will be interesting since the beginning of war. But like resilience or sustainability, that's about everyone, like simple people and organizations. I made some notes of today's speeches, and I would like to say that probably the formula of resilience, well, in each organization, it is based on the same principles. And you asked to make a formula today of our organization and resilience. I will try to do that. And I think you will hear and you will see that actually it is having some things in common with the things that were mentioned earlier today. First of all, I would like to start with words that I'm representing Raiffeisen Bank, and if you come to the website of the MinFin portal, there is a rating of resilience of banks as the result of the first quarter of this year, and we are on top of the table. As of today, we are the most sustainable bank in Ukraine, and now I will try to logically explain why. Among the main data, there is assessment of analysts, and there are some signs about the deposits, etc., etc. The especially important sign is trust resilience. What does it mean? It means that the bank now, the signs of the main signs is profit, adequacy of the capital, liquidity. All of that is on the level that gives them some capacities in case of any emergencies. Each bank, if it has such a word as resilient, those things should have, they should have something in their stock, so to say. And now in liquidity, we are performing everything properly. And what is also very important, that the National Bank is conducting assessment of resilience of the banks. It's very important exercise, and for these results, we had successful results a few times in a row, and we had one of the best signs because we did not need any changes in the structure of our capital, nor needed we any changes in our management. That's very important. That's about the general assessment of sustainability of the bank. If we move on, our resilience is based on very simple formula consisting of a combination of risk-balanced approach and availability of procedures, how to conduct our activity without any interruptions, because anytime we have to ensure our clients with the best service possible. And we proved that since the beginning of war. We didn't stop loans. We provided our services. We were one of the first, if not the first ones. We put all the client services into cloud during the few months after the beginning of war. It was a challenge, but it was a successful project at the end. And that also speaks about our resilience, because in case of unpredictable situation, our customers, our clients continue working and using bank services. That is also availability of units with the generators. That is 70% of our banks are equipped with that. We are in the system of power banking. We are in line with all of the conditions necessary. That is availability of shelters. We are building. It is clear that we have approximately 300 offices, and we are trying to build shelter almost in each office so that it's comfortable, first of all, for our employees and for the clients, of course. As for the formula, right, if we can say it this way, there is formula of success for any organization that is have satisfied the customers and the employees, etc., etc. Those are basic principles. I think that we can put the equality sign as of today as the formula for equality, because if any of the parameters is excluded, there might be some issues while working with we can focus just on these two components, our clients and employees. As for the clients, what does it mean, risk-balanced approach that we are implementing currently? It means that from the other side, we are supporting our clients, we are giving loans, we are helping businesses, especially now, what is very important, our energy projects, and we are active participants of the memorandum signed by top 20 banks. We were developing that, we were implementing and adopting. From the other side, we are looking at the quality of the loans portfolio, like what clients are we providing loans with, because again, this is impacting our resilience, because if bad clients, bad situation in bank, there will be problem with the capital, liquidity, etc., etc. Everything is interconnected. If we are talking about employees, that's a very important topic as of today, and it was mentioned again today. Currently, we as the bank feel the deficit of high-level staff. First of all, because of the migration of population. Secondly, mobilization. Thirdly, because all of us are living in such conditions that it's very hard to study, to develop yourself. But we are working on that, and what we are doing in terms of sustainability in this sense, if we have no qualified staff, it is clear that the bank, just like any other organization, won't know how to work with clients, with customers, how to provide good services, etc. What do we do here? Like here we can make up the main formula of how to work with people. Well, maybe it's in the, Maslow's pyramid or hierarchy, which is well known. The first thing that has to be ensured is a safety for employees, safe conditions. If they are working in the office, there should be shelter. There should be enough number of places in the shelter in case of air raid alert. If they are working from home, we have a hybrid format as well. Such an opportunity. It depends on how crucial this is, but we provide such an option. So first of all, it's safety when working. Secondly, clear financial sustainability. There is no way to go without it, and we pay salaries to our military servants. We have approximately 200 of our people who are serving in the armed forces of Ukraine. We pay them wages, and now we have many programs on returning the veterans. We are waiting for them to come back, and they are coming, and they continue working in our bank. We have programs like working with psychologists, separate direction, which we are also working on. The third thing are the so-called well-being programs. What is it? That is ensuring physical and mental health to our employees. That's a very important topic, and we are seriously paying attention to it. We are inviting the psychologists in different directions, like physical and mental health as of today probably is the most important component of work of any organization. We are also communicating with our clients, and they are doing this as well because, well, let us say so, it will be very hard to show this resilience without that, and development is very important. Not to forget about education, reorientation of staff, because the world is changing, and we should not forget that the organization itself also has to do something. Even during the war, we have to develop digital services, we have to change the organization from inside, have to make that more simple because the clients are demanding more and more quality. We have competition in this sense. We don't stop our investments. We continue doing all of that. And here, also education and development is very important. For the people who are there in places, they gain new skills. New skills that we, just like other banks and other institutions, they are implementing the inclusivity conditions for work of any organization, and currently we are also actively working on that. We are re-equipping our offices. Approximately 200 of our offices already have means in order to be in line with the inclusivity requirements. Until the end of the year, we are planning to bring that to 260 offices. It's important because we do understand that already now, and in the future we are already working as a country, as organization in different conditions, and we altogether will need involvement of bigger number of people who have some problems with their health, including mental health. So summing up, like from top to the bottom, for the bank, it is important to have signs of resilience than clients, how we are working with the clients, employees, and the processes shouldn't be interrupted because at any time, with any conditions, we have to provide the highest quality service. Thank you very much, Alexander. And I would like to talk also with one more representative of the business. I am addressing Fedor Kornienko. So please tell us, how do you succeed in achieving this, non-interruption in your network of educational institutions? What problems, what vulnerabilities maybe you face every day? Is that working? Children who are in different corners of our country, from Chernihiv to Ivano-Frankivsk. And, well, we didn't even come to simulation because in the latest 20 years, the country is living somehow like from crisis to recovery, 1 year of crisis and 3 years of recovery. We didn't even manage to like simulate some crisis, and the previous crisis, it was simulating the next one. So yeah, we succeeded through standard business performance indicators to work further on, and we made, well, first of all, we divided the stakeholders. Each direction was divided to stakeholders, like all who were interested in our business, parents, children, and employees, and owners of infrastructure that we are coming to, and they are voting by their legs. We had to do everything necessary so that during the crisis or during the uplift, all our partners are with us, and thus following the client, whether it's Ivano-Frankivsk or Poland, we made everything possible in order to be useful for our children everywhere. First of all, you need to understand, if we are talking about the sustainability of business, we have to understand what the business is doing actually. If we are talking about kindergartens, it's not about just kindergarten, but taking care of children. I'm not sure that I can talk about the macro level because we are not a big company if we look at our country as a whole, but we realize that care in children, they are always, and we need and we have to follow them. Thank you very much. I have a question to both entrepreneurs, to both representatives from businesses. How do you predict the risks or crisis situations? Can you share your opinion, and can we disseminate your methods maybe to other spheres from your point of view again? Well, as for the two directions for clients and employees, for example, if we are talking about clients, then of course we have a whole direction on stress testing, and we are actively doing that. And the main stress tests are the beginning when we had issues with logistics. So we were including questionnaires for the customers, for clients, and we were including our own vision, so that we can directly understand what is happening for the client, for the customer, what are the prospects, how it can impact our signs, our points. Then a few stress tests we had on blackout risks. Now it's also a very relevant topic, and we are doing this as well. And there is certain methodology, now I won't tell you a lot about that, but it proved that starting from the questionnaire and ending up with certain calculations, we can approximately understand what might be the impact today or tomorrow to the credit portfolio of the bank. That's important because the quality of the credit portfolio is impacting the work in the science. As for the employees, we also have a whole direction. So we are conducting the pulse checks, so-called twice per year questionnaire, the list of questions, certain methodology, and the main thing is the level of involvement. What is the situation from the safety point of view, and how satisfied they are with the conditions of their work, and also a whole set of questions regarding physical and emotional resilience. Based on that, later on we are processing all of that. We are dividing that into pools, and we are looking at the directions, and it's incredibly important to understand where the employee is working, because also the location depends on that, and we have many people who are not in Kyiv, also in Kharkiv, in Zaporizhia. So we have to understand what level and what is happening to people. Based on that, certain programs of work with each pool is developed. We have system of assessment, there is integral sign, and we are distributing that. We look how to work and what has to be done. Tell us, please, Mr. Alexander. It is known that banks have one of the most strict criteria and methods about prognosing the risks. Well, it is clear why, but are there some opportunities to scale those methods or to tell everything that you mentioned right now, for example, to communities or NGOs or the defense sector or other entrepreneurs, so they might use some methods from their side so that they can understand like how to survive when there is uncertainty for quite some time. Well, we had a few meetings with regulators and National Bank and other banks. We have regular meetings for experience exchange. We are sharing our vision, so to say, and we are taking something from other participants as well. I will be honest, bank is a specific organization, and some of the stress tests that we are conducting, it's not always some other organization from other field can take, because first of all, we are a universal bank. We have corporate clients and middle and medium businesses and physical persons, and stress tests are different because for physical persons, those are different criteria for assessment. People are migrating. We need to understand where the person is, how they are working, what is there with their job condition, and for legal persons, totally different models are working. However, regarding the approaches itself and the main risks that we are forcing, we can share, of course. So we have our own macroeconomist researchers who are making regular reports, and they are sending all those booklets to our clients. They can view all of that. That is from macro level to micro level. And they see what kind of threats might be. And we can share this, actually. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'd like to remind you that indeed, as far as in Ukraine, there is a plan of actions on implementing the concept of national resilience. One of the tasks is creating certain mechanism of prognosing risks and threats. And the things that we are doing today, it's an intersectoral meeting. It's the first time, and we've never done it like this, to invite the small and medium business representatives for them to share their methods, their vision, how to see, how to detect the risks and threats. But for the future, I think it's a very interesting challenge in order to consider how, like, different methodologies, is there any synergy possible between them, or maybe we need to create something totally new for Ukrainian society. Dear colleagues, I think that now we will already end our meeting. If some of you would like to say something, then please do. And at the end, I would like to give the floor to Oleg Pokalchuk for a diagnosis, of all the things that were happening here today. So please, Oleg, your pros and cons and where we should pay attention to. Yeah, I'm like a, stand-up comic today for you. Well, psychologists, psychiatrists, psychotherapists, they are working with the processes of brain activities. And in this process, our assessments, our results, we are having more, not that close to sociologists. When we are talking about resilience in our professional field, then in social dimension, resilience, it's a metaphor. And mostly it is perceived as some kind of unbreakability. And, well, yeah, the walls of Babylon, they had 3 rows, 8 kilometers, 3,000 years ago. It was destroyed, and we read about that in the Bible. And if we are too much, if we are closing ourselves too much from the bad things, we are also closing ourselves from good things, because our brain doesn't differentiate the good and bad. It's prefrontal cortex, and our very tiny modern education, In terms of psychology, there are 3 parameters that are called in different words. First of all, survival. That is why I mentioned that this approach is a bit not adapted socially, but it's an evolutional parameter. and it was confirmed as an important factor, And second, it's flexibility. How flexible the person is. And third moment is being able to adjust. And these moments, like being flexible and being able to adjust on individual level, they are creating dynamic system which can resist the challenges and altogether in social sphere. And it depends on different variables, age and gender, etc., etc. Altogether, it gives birth to a common characteristics of the system and the things that are kind of interpreted as resilience. But again, the same researchers in sociology, and they had very interesting researches on values, but these parameters that I mentioned, they have certain conflict with the value system because survival, but the issue of the cost, what will it cost in ethical sense, etc., and the same about adjustment and the conditions of occupation. Will people collaborate or not, or it's against their values? How flexible they are, how much it's more like a pattern or archetype. And flexibility, it's like any psychological trauma is kind of keeping the person here and now in certain condition, is creating kind of a space. Everything we've talked about, those different points of view, they are showing the dynamics of those processes. And these parameters that I mentioned, they will allow, personally, but the sustainability of the system depends on efficiency of perfect settings that I mentioned. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Alaa. And I would like to add one more criterion, that is recovery and transformation, with the principles to become better, better. And any system of resilience is aiming at changing itself. And I truly hope that we will be able to become better than we are today. And of course, we would like to invite other experts and all the participants who would like to join the discussion about resilience. You can contact us, and we will be very happy to see you, to organize the new discussion together with you. We would like to thank Ukraine Crisis Media Center for their partnership in today's meeting, and I wish all the participants health and safety.